Let us pray. Lord God, we come to you today with thanks and gratefulness in our hearts. We give thanks for the ability to come together tonight without the threat of harm or persecution, and we are grateful to live in a community of caring neighbors and a system of governance in which the needs of those who call Greenwood home are placed front and center. Lord, we ask you to be with us. Move in the hearts and minds of the members of this council and in all the leaders and servants of our city. We ask for direction. Help us to be of one mind and one movement, centering our collective thoughts and actions on the safety, well-being, and prospering of our people. We ask for focus. In a world filled with distraction, bring us the discipline needed to stay on point and maintain guardrails to push back against the flow of damaging information and unrealistic expectations. And finally, Lord, we ask for reconciliation. When we fail to live up to standards, when we make mistakes, help us restore relationships and offer forgiveness freely to those who have wronged us in some way. Father, we thank you for your continued blessing on our community. We are extremely blessed to live in this time and place. Help us to never take for granted the many blessings that come our way every day. Lord God, we love you and we thank you. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. May be seated. Jacob, you'll meet me down front. Just give us your name, your troop number, and why you're here tonight.
Hello, my name is Jacob Blanford. I'm from Troop 564. I am currently a first class scout. Why I'm here, I'm working on Star Scout, and I'm also working on the merit badge. And I have to come to a council meeting and write down some of the points of discussion for both sides of an argument. And
Roll call.
Armstrong.
Here.
Bates.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Dine.
Here.
Foster.
Here.
Gibson. Here. Hill.
Here.
Hopper.
Here.
And Lexi.
Here. We have a quorum. We've also received copies of the minutes from our regular meeting on April the 1st. Do you have a motion?
Also move.
Motion, Mr. Bates, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, roll call on the minutes.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Minutes are approved and voted 9-0. At this time, we set aside time on the agenda for members of the audience to address the council concerning items on the agenda. Before we get started with that, we'll turn it over to the mayor at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we get the special opportunity to swear in two of our newest police officers to the city. Family members, we want to thank you for coming and for being a part of this very important day for these gentlemen. We want you to know that when people come to work for the city of Greenwood, they don't just come to work for the city, they actually join our family. You now are part of the family of the employees of the city of Greenwood. If there are ever any problems, any questions, any concerns, feel free to reach out and talk to anybody in the administration, because we're here to make their lives better. We want to offer these gentlemen the best training that there is in the state, turn them out to be the best police officers that they can be, and send them back home to you safer every night than when they left that day when they went into work. So we work together as a family. We want you to know that you're a member of that family. And thank you for coming and being a part of this tonight. Gentlemen, if you'll both face me, if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, James Schutz,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution
to support the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Indiana,
of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as an officer of the Greenwood Police Department
as an officer of the Greenwood Police Department
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and according to the law,
and according to the law.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Those are your replacements, Bob.
Trying to say it took two of them to replace his mom.
He won't fit through that door going out.
Thank you all, and welcome to the police department. All right, this time, is anyone else from the audience wishing to address the council concerning items on the agenda tonight? If so be, step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Matthew Smith, 450 South Grade Drive, Indiana. What I wanted to address to you guys tonight was something at the last meeting that I heard that was concerning and we're rehearing tonight, and that's the speculative development that's coming up for abatement. The two things that really concern me first is that it is speculative, and in that we don't know if who's going to be moving into those buildings, and it's a concern as long as they meet the zoning requirements, then anybody can move into those buildings. And the other is that the person presenting last time made a comment about how they needed this abatement to be able to have their rents low enough that people can afford them. And my question is, what happens in 10 years when these abatements go away? I know buildings depreciate, but it's not going to be that much. Are they suddenly going to be affordable? Are they going to raise rents so the people that are there and suddenly make it unaffordable? These are all questions I'd caution you on this abatement moving forward. Thank you.
Do you know which ordinance or resolution you were referring to?
I believe it was in 1905, the GLA properties.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
But anyone else from the audience wishing to address the council at this time? State your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Kyle Swain at 929 Wellington Circle. I too have some concerns about Resolution 1905. The same argument made that the abatement was required in order to have businesses afford their rental rates. That means to me either two things. One, that the business will not be profitable or sustainable after 10 years. Or two, if they tend to be beyond 10 years, that the tax abatement is not required anyway. Now, while I'm not opposed to any tax abatement, I would like to see it used for beautification or some sort of purpose to provide amenities or walkable spaces instead of just a straight corporate welfare handout to the corporation. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience wishing to address the council at this time?
So, just to clarify, for like the millionth time for everybody in the audience, we don't get any money if the business doesn't come here. We don't cut anybody a check. We can't spend any money on beautification or other projects. There is no money for that. That's not how it works. That's all I have.
All right. Anyone else from the audience?
Yes, Dale Marmaduke, 1153 Civil Road. It does work that way.
No, it doesn't, Mr. Marmaduke. I'm sorry.
Mr. Marmaduke, do you have something to do with an item on the agenda, not an argument?
1905. I would like to say that abatement, corporate welfare is a case where it's the same transfer of money as if they actually paid what everybody else paid and the city wrote them a check. The end result is the same, and as such, it is a gift. The city is not collecting what they collect from everybody else. And so I ask you to end corporate welfare, especially for the unknown and for those that bring the city down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that's not how it works.
Anyone else from the audience? Seeing none, moving on, reports, Corporation Counsel.
You all have received the item semi-monthly and also the litigation report on the SharePoint. If you have questions, please contact me.
All right, anything from the Controller's Office at this time? All right, you all should have received a copy of my report from the last RDC meeting. If you have any questions, let me know. Any other committee or board reports? All right, seeing none. Ordinances and resolutions. First reading, ordinance number 1908.
An ordinance vacating platted drainage, utility, and access easements located at 1235 North State Road 135, sponsored by Dime.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bates. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lexi. This is open or scheduled for public hearing tonight, so we'll open up the public hearing. If you wish to speak for or against ordinance 1908, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Joseph Heck with Projects Plus, 2650 Fairview Place, Greenwood, Indiana, 46142. Here for the vacation of utility and access easements of the Goodman Commercial Subdivision. The former car wash is behind Luciana's, the former House Vegas. Looking to redevelop that land, and we need to vacate certain easements that were recorded. Do you need to see what they are? I can put them on the screen, or do you guys? I'm not sure how to type.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
See them? All right.
A picture what the thousand.
Yeah. That side is off 135, 1235, North State Road 135. The two lots. We're going through the plat vacation to make these two lots into one lot. The easement down the middle between lots 2 and 3 is a drainage utility easement that we need to vacate. There's a triangular piece of the existing detention drainage easement on the
Ordinance 1908.
There is no change in the zoning, it's just a condition in easement.
Right. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, roll call. First reading, ordinance 1908.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Ordinance 1908 passes first reading 9-0. Second reading, resolution 1905.
A resolution declaring certain real property improvements for tax abatement, GLA Properties 2 LLC, sponsored by Hopper and Campbell.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Motion Mr. Bates, second by Mr. Hopper. Any discussion, resolution 1905? Any questions?
Good, you lost, Katie?
No, that's a sister organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
All right, any discussion on the council? Seeing in roll call, resolution 1905, second reading.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Nay.
Armstrong.
Nay.
Bates.
Aye.
Resolution 1905 passes second reading 7-2. Thank you.
Very much.
Resolution 1906.
A resolution establishing procedures for consideration and approval of applications for tax abatement and adoption of tax abatement deduction schedules, sponsored by Campbell.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion Mr. Bates, second.
Sure.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any discussion on resolution 1906? Seeing none, roll call, second reading, resolution 1906.
Stein.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye. Resolution 1906 passes second reading 9-0. New business, introduction of new ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 1909.
An ordinance amending the 2019 salary ordinance, Common Council Ordinance Number 1823, to change the position of certified latent fingerprint examiner to crime scene specialist and change the crime scene specialist pay in the police department, sponsored by Dime.
Good evening.
Chief Lau, welcome.
Thank you. Times have changed. Eric Lowe, who is our fingerprint expert, is retiring, and over the 30+ years he has worked with us, his job duties have changed over time. And matching fingerprints now to crime scenes really has given way to DNA and other type of scientific evidence. So with his retirement, we seized upon the opportunity to transform that position from the latent fingerprint expert into a more up-to-date crime scene specialist. So this individual will take care of crime scenes, the processing of evidence, the moving of evidence, and most of it, and almost all of our evidence now, will go to the Indiana State Police Lab to match them in the house. I think last year we counted 17 fingerprints he matched, and it's nothing against Eric. It's just they wear gloves, and they've learned over time that that's just a gone by. So we estimate a change and bring that up to date.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the chief? All right, thank you. Ordinance 1910.
An ordinance providing for additional appropriations from the Aviation Fund to budget classifications 445, $15,000, 444, $95,000, 331, $40,000, and 336, $16,000, sponsored by Gibson.
Mr. Wright.
Yes, the airport, we sat down with the president of the Board of Airport Commissioners and the airport manager, came up with a priority capital list. Their cash reserves have been pretty strong, over 50% of their budget for the last, well, just over a year now since I've been here. So what we discussed was taking it no lower than 35% with whatever the total projects came out to that we were going to try to do, and then that would be rebuilt as the state police facility comes online and we start getting more fuel sales. So it would build back up, and that was predicated on all of it being spent at once, but this is going to be spread out through the rest of the year. It includes replacing the bifold door on the main hangar east, and that's the reason that I'm asking to suspend through first reading, is because we were able to get special pricing on that if we ordered it at the same time as when the state police door was ordered. So we were able to save some money there. The ground power units, they need to refurbish the current one and then add a second one. They're getting more requests for use out of that. We need some work on the HVAC units and the bathrooms at the FBO building, and then some exterior lighting upgrades on the outside of some of the hangars.
Question I always like to ask when we do an additional appropriations, what effect will this have on the budget?
On the budget, this would increase the budget for the airport, but as far as what they can afford, it's going to use some of their cash reserves, but we expect that the revenues will make up a big chunk of that as state police start flying this summer, when they start flying the drug interdictions, and it's daily.
When will the state police come online out there?
They've moved in to some temporary quarters already, but through the summer they have 2 Cessnas that they fly on a daily basis for drug interdiction, so they'll be fueling those up every day. So we expect we'll increase our fuel sales pretty significantly.
So you think that the increased revenue will...
It'll offset a big chunk of this, and then the rest, they have cash reserves over 50%, so they're running higher than even we necessarily would recommend. So this gives them an opportunity to get some capital done that they haven't done in the past several years, just trying to build that up.
All right, Any other questions for the controller?
Mr. President, I'd like to move for suspension of the rules to first reading.
All right, we have a motion to suspend the rules through first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine. Any discussion on suspension of the rules? Seeing none, roll call on suspension.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dye.
Aye.
Rules are suspended through first reading on a vote of 9-0. For our Boy Scout who's here tonight, typically, as you can see, we have ordinances that are under first reading, second reading, and an introduction. Typically, what happens is an ordinance is introduced at one meeting. The next meeting, we have first reading and a vote, and then if it passes, it goes on to a third meeting where we have a second reading and a second vote, and if it passes, then it goes to the mayor's office. We can suspend the rules, but we have to take a vote on that. To suspend it one time in a night, it just requires a majority vote. That requires 6 votes, right? Anyway, it doesn't require a unanimous vote. If to suspend it twice in one night would require a unanimous vote by the council. But we've suspended it tonight as introduced. We suspended through first reading, and then we'll take a motion on that and then have a vote tonight, which is not unusual, but it's not the ordinary way that we do it. So just so you'll know. Do you have a motion on ordinance 1910 first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bates, second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion? Ordinance 1910. Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1910.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dye.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Ordinance 1910 passes first reading 9-0. Also, for anybody in the audience, but for the Boy Scout, this is what we call an additional appropriations. We pass a budget every year, and we passed a budget for the airport, and this is, they want to spend money that was not budgeted, and that has to come back before the council for approval, so that's what this is. All right, ordinance 1911.
An ordinance to amend the text of Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 8, Traffic and Parking Regulations, Article 2, to amend Section 8-8, prohibiting truck traffic on certain streets to include portions of County Road 75 East and County Road 250 East, sponsored by Armstrong and Campbell.
You will explain your part?
Well, this is 75 East going from Worthville to Stop 18. Stop 18 at that point is a no truck road, and so therefore you get to the end of the of 75E and you have no place to go. So rather than have them come down and then try to figure out what to do, just shut them off at the south end of 75E.
I believe Mr. Armstrong brought that up at our last meeting. I asked the legal counsel to include County Road 250 East, which is on the east side of I-65, south of Worsville Road. It's, I think Collins, the street east of Collins, I believe. And it just, we can only control the part that's in the city, but there's no need for semis to be headed down that direction, and especially with the distribution centers that we have north of Worsville Road. If they're going to come to Worsville Road, they need to head straight to the interstate, not head south of there. So I asked that they include that in there as well. Any questions? All right, moving on, Resolution 1908.
A resolution declaring certain real property improvements and personal property for tax abatement, Indiana Becknell Investors 2011 LLC, Pointer Sheet Metal Inc., sponsored by Hopper and Campbell.
Mr. Sherman.
Thank you. You have in your packet, excuse me, this is a request for abatement for personal and real property. It's a request for a 10-year abatement. You will remember Pointer Sheet Metal. It's been, the company's been before you before. This is for an addition to their building. They have a little over 100,000 square foot building, and they're going to put approximately $50,000 1,000 square foot addition on that, as well as put over $600,000 worth of equipment inside that building. Pointer Sheet Metal has been a good corporate partner with our city. As you can see in the information that I provided to you, their hourly rate is about $23 an hour. That does not include, for a single employee, $7,000 worth of company-sponsored health care, over $380 worth of life insurance, and 401k match that's a little over $2,100. So you can see that the wages that there'll be 40 employees that will be in the new building over a 3-year period. So it's Becknell is going to build the building. Becknell currently owns the building. It's leased by Pointer Sheet Metal. So Larry Siegler would have been here. His son's having his first softball game tonight, I think. So you'd have another crack at him at our next meeting. So.
Any questions for Mr. Sherman? All right.
I would ask if it's possible to suspend the rules for a first reading.
So moved. We have a motion by Mr. Bates for suspension of the rules on Resolution 1908 through first reading. The second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion on the council on suspension of the rules? Seeing none, roll call on suspension.
Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Rules are suspended on Resolution 1908 through first reading. Do I have a motion on first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dine. Any discussion on Resolution 1908? Seeing none, roll call. Resolution 1908, first reading.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Resolution 1908 passes first reading 9-0. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, miscellaneous business from the council.
Mr. President, I'd like to make 2 announcements on dates. The airport will be hosting the B-17 again on Friday, May the 10th through Sunday, May the 12th. That is Mother's Day weekend, but maybe you might want to be out there on Friday or Saturday. And then on Monday, April the 29th, there's a group of citizens that's been working on a memorial for veterans, fire, and police, and there will be a groundbreaking at the lot between the library and Serena Way at 4 o'clock on the 29th.
Could we get a B-29 out there too? Or is the runway long enough?
I'm not sure about that.
I loved that last year. I recommend anybody going to it to go to it. When I was there last year, there was a veteran there of World War II who actually flew a plane just like that. That was amazing.
Well, and they've got several planes that are coming in on Airport Day.
All right, anything else from the council? Seeing none, I'm sorry.
I just have one, and hopefully I'm not out of order here. I know this is the political season, and I do know too there's been a recent Supreme Court decision when you could put signs up and when you couldn't, as opposed to our local ordinance of some years past. But isn't it still not kosher to put them up in the right way?
That is correct, and that can be enforced.
All right, anything else from the council? Seeing none, moving on. This is the second opportunity for members of the audience to address the council. At this time, it would be items that are not on the agenda. So if you're here tonight and would like to speak to the council, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we'll move on. Other miscellaneous business, Corporation Council.
We have a CF1 for compliance AIC income fund, Crossroads, which is sell a phone to act upon.
All right, Gentlemen, what's your pleasure? Ladies and
I
gentlemen, what's your
move to
pleasure?
find AIC income fund in substantial
Second.
compliance.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lexi to find them in compliance, second by Mr. Bates. Any discussion?
Yeah, the column for 50% 2019, is that the numbers that we should be looking at, or should we be looking at the 2018 numbers?
Looking to see if I even have it with me. They are giving you a report from the prior year, so we're probably looking at
So
final
they-
year in 2019, so I think.
They
that's the
went from paying, for the additional employees, $933,000 to $17,000?
I was wondering where I was going to ask that question. That does seem to be, even with 8 employees, $17,000 seems to be, something seems to be off with that.
Would you like us to have someone come to a meeting and answer questions for you?
I'd like at least those numbers verified,
Okay.
and if they are true, then I would like to have someone come and talk to us.
I'll withdraw.
Did we ask them last year when they went from 13 to 12 employees, why salaries doubled, basically? Did we ask that question?
Not that I remember. All right, Mr. Bates has withdrawn his second. Mr. Lexi, you want to withdraw your motion?
I will withdraw.
All right. We will postpone this one then until our next meeting. All right, anything else from the Corporation Council?
I do. We have some conflicts of interest to accept at a public meeting, so we may file them with the state. Diane Downey, deferral coordinator paralegal for her spouse Stephen Pat Downey for any interest she may have in his earnings as a city employee as a code enforcement officer. And Stephen Pat Downey, part-time code enforcement officer for his spouse Diana Downey for any interest he may have in her earnings as a city employee as the deferral coordinator paralegal. And in addition, that's not on there, that came in late, Don Garvin, who's a technician in the fleet department, may possibly bid at the city's car auction that's scheduled for April 24th.
All right. Do we have a motion on Diane Downey?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bates, second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Gibson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion on Mr. Downey.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bates, second by Ms. Gibson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the last one, motion on Mr. Garvin.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bates, second by Ms. Gibson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All three are approved.
That's all I've got, thank you.
Anything from the Controller's office? Anything from the Mayor's office? Thank you all. We are adjourned.